Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Thanks for tuning in. Got another great show lined up for you this week, and I know you'll think so after viewing it. I want to say thank you again to you viewers for making us number one. Fox 28, very happy with your viewership in this show, and they've let me know, so I want to let you know. Thank you very much. Got another great show, as I mentioned. Here we go. So Joe Mershman's going to join me here in just a moment with the Mershman Minute, then Hawkeye insider David Eicholt, and then James Vandenberg, of course, joins us in talking about the future and the past with Iowa Hawkeye players getting ready for their future once they become Hawkeyes and moving on into life. And then we'll close out the show. Jeff Horner not able to join us this week, former Hawkeye basketball playing great. So I got two substitutes for him. Greg Brunner and Adam Haluska, former Hawkeye greats. Greg is the all-time Iowa Hawkeye leading rebounder still, and Adam, a former 2007 second-round NBA draft pick. So looking forward to bringing this show to you this week. And that being said, I've located my buddy Joe Mershman, and there he is. Joe, first and foremost, as always, thanks for joining us. And secondly, James Vandenberg and I are going to talk about the future, or getting ready for the future with athletes. And James gives speeches and symposiums to players. Coach Ferentz has brought him in the past to talk to players. I'm just curious how that dovetails into your life and your world.
Well, agriculture, farmers right now are basically, it's the off season. So what are they doing? They're training, just like a player that wants to get better. If they don't have livestock and they're focused on getting their equipment ready so they can go faster and plant more acres per day, because they never know how many days they're going to have to plant, or they're in front of their computers and crunching numbers, trying to figure out how they're going to make a profit this year, making sure their inputs are all lined up, and so they can execute as quickly and as fast as they can. Because you can have a wet spring and you might only have just a few days to plant your crop. So right now they're focused on getting better and doing things faster and as efficient as possible.
And isn't that fascinating? Just like all of us in life, but all these athletes as well. Practice time, planning, getting ready for the future, whether it be off the court or off the field, or on the court or on the field, or in life. There's just so much to consider. So Joe, as always, thanks so much for joining us, and I look forward to catching up with you next week, my friend.
All right, Dave, take care.
And I've located David Eicholt, as you see on the screen right next to me. Hawkeye Insider, all his information at the bottom of the screen, along with my information. I say that because I want to get right to it, as always, with David. We've got limited time and so much information he has, as always. First and foremost, as always, my friend, thanks for joining us. And secondly, how's everything going with you?
Outside my Packers just absolutely crushing me and breaking my heart. I'm finding a way to survive and hopefully thrive, Dave. Appreciate it as always.
You're very welcome, and thank you. See, if you were a Bear fan like me, you wouldn't have that heartbreak. You just know going in, you're going to be disappointed. So that being said, let's roll right into it, man. There's so much to discuss. The Hawkeyes football first. We made much ado about the Hawkeyes in the Super Bowl or going to the Super Bowl. We've got 4 of the 9 left. 2 Chiefs and Anthony Hitchens and Ben Neiman, and then 2 Buccaneers in Tristan Wirfs and Anthony Nelson. But we'll get into that next week. We've got 12 more days before the Super Bowl, Super Sunday, as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, and then we'll talk about it more next week. So as the viewers are watching this on Friday night, David, they'll already know the outcome of the Iowa-Illinois game. So again, as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, let's table the Iowa-Illinois game for just a second, and the Iowa loss to Indiana last week. Let's talk some Iowa football recruiting-wise. Zielinski, an offensive lineman out of Florida, signs, but I'm going to let you kind of put a nice bow on 21-22 for the Hawkeye football program, recruiting-wise, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Zielinski, a high 3-star center out of Jacksonville, Florida. His father was actually the strength coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, he's been around the game all his life. You talk about a perfect crown jewel for this offensive line class. I'll go on the record and say I think Iowa's 2021 offensive line class is probably top 2 or top 3 in the country. We could have an entire starting 5 of offensive linemen from this 2021 class. Each of them have a different skill set, fit into different positions. And I'll say this too, by 24/7 Sports, 4-star, now enrollee Arlen Bruce did get a 4th star this week in the 24/7 Sports updated rankings. So Iowa has 2 4-star wide receivers in the recruiting class, and probably Kirk Ferentz's best wide receiver recruiting class he's ever had in his career at Iowa.
Great news. And listeners and viewers, I would caution you to please, or warn you to please go to David's podcast, #Swarmcast. He and Sean Bach, who covers a lot of recruiting with and for David at Hawkeye Insider. What great work they do. A lot of times they go on and record a podcast together talking about the recruiting, and Sean has done an interview with Ms. Linsky, as you mentioned. So great stuff by you guys at 24/7 and HawkeyeInsider.com. Again, at David Eicholt via social media. Fantastic coverage and just Superlative work by Coach Ferentz and the staff. But now let's get into talk a little bit, David, and you and I will get more into Hawkeye football as you do my radio show with me on WMT and KXIC over the weekend. So be sure to tune in for that or go to DaveO'HaraSports.com to listen to David and I go into more detail about the Hawkeye football recruiting going on with Hawkeye football. But David, Hawkeye basketball. Tough news last week. We previewed the Indiana game. Well, Indiana came in at 8-6 with Archie Miller and crew. Didn't have Galloway playing for them, and they still beat the Hawkeyes handily, 81-69 at Carver Hawkeye Arena. A 20-3 run in the second half put that game to bed for Indiana. Hawks going into that game tied for the Big Ten lead with Michigan at 6-1. Now they're in second place with a couple of other teams. But let's preview, even though the viewers will know the result already. We record this on Tuesday afternoon, but let's talk a little bit about the Illinois-Iowa game upcoming. So I'm going to let you go back and talk about Iowa, Indiana, and forward Iowa and Illinois, please.
Yeah, first of all, I'd caution people to overreact to the loss to Indiana. Here's what I would say, Dave. There's 3 games a year where teams going to look really good, 3 games a year where they're going to look really bad, and the other 24 is how good they actually are. Don't overreact to this. Jordan Bohannon had a career worst night. They were packing the paint. CJ Frederick obviously missed the second half with a, quote, lower leg injury, so we'll see what his status is heading into the Illinois game. But looking ahead to Illinois, Dave, I mean, this is a game we've had circled on our calendar all year. Kofi Coburn, remember, Luka Garza's fantastic junior season. The last play was Kofi Coburn blocking his shot at the buzzer. So if you don't think that that's going to motivate Luka Garza versus this Illinois team, you know, I'd say you're sadly mistaken there. And remember, DeMonte Williams and Connor McCaffrey are going forehead to forehead during the game. I mean, this is going to be as intense, if not the most intense Big Ten basketball game, Dave, I think we'll see all season. I am extremely excited to watch this, but I'm really upset that the Big Ten only scheduled them one time in the regular season, because I do think that with this renewed Iowa-Illinois rivalry, it's going to make for quite a show.
Yeah, it really is. And we're going to talk with Greg Brunner and Adam Haluska later on in this program about the parking wars of being an Iowa athlete and the battle that Jordan Bohannon is facing with the University of Iowa parking system. Greg Brunner and Adam Haluska will give their comments. James Vandenberg weighed in on that. We'll be weighing in on that in the next upcoming segment as well. So much to discuss. You and I will table that for now. But again, I shouldn't say I caution or warn the viewers and listeners, but they should definitely have a heads up to check you out, your podcast, #Swarmcast, and then you and me on radio as well. But David, last minute we have here upcoming, the Iowa-Michigan State game has been rescheduled. At least we have one postponement getting ready to be made up. February 13th, correct?
I believe that was, yes, I believe that was it. And then it was going to be on Fox the day before Valentine's Day. Yes, I believe that's at 1:30. 1:30
p.m. Central Tip, that is correct, and we look forward to that. And, you know, David, as always, I can't begin to say thank you enough for the great coverage. And I do say to the listeners, again, a heads up. Check out the recruiting from 24/7 Sports, part of that David's a part of that network at 24/7 Sports, part of the CBS Sports Network. Again, his HawkeyeInsider.com, the website, and all that on social media, as you see at the bottom of the screen. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. David, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to catching up with you next week, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Appreciate it as always.
You're very welcome, and thank you. So for David Eichholt, thanks to him and also Joe Mershman, we're going to lead up into the show here, getting ready to talk with James Vandenberg. Got a couple of nuggets in there for you James and I are going to talk about. I know it, so stay tuned for that. And then also, it's always fun. Jeff Horner's not able to join us this week, but it's always fun to have 2 former Hawkeye basketball playing greats. So we'll have Adam Haluska and Greg Brunner joining me to close out the show. Back with more of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara, in just a few moments.
One word means more to farmers than any other: yield. Nobody knows this better than your friend in the field, Mershman Seeds. With industry-leading seed treatments like Trepidity ST, you'll see faster emergence and more bushels per acre. Become a part of the Mershman family and see the difference in your field. Ask your dealer for superiority, Mershman Seeds.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara, and as you can see on the screen next to me, I've located my buddy James Vandenberg. James is with the RBC Wealth Management Group. You can go to corridorinvestmentgroup.com, former Iowa Hawkeye quarterback. James, as always, thanks for joining us. And secondly, then now there were 2, and now there are 2. 4 winnowed down to 2. We still got some Hawkeyes left in the Super Bowl, but how's everything going with you, my friend?
Hey, it's good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, those were 2 good games, and definitely 2 high-level teams going to play against each other here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, for the first time in Super Bowl history, we'll have a home team, although the Buccaneers are going to be listed on the scoreboard as the visitors in their home stadium. But for the first time in NFL history, 55 years of the Super Bowl, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be the only team so far to play a Super Bowl in their home stadium against the Kansas City Chiefs. So we still have 4 Hawkeyes left. We have Anthony Hitchens, a guy that you were familiar with in your playing days, and you talked about it last week, and then, of course, Ben Neiman for the Chiefs, and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2 new additions the last couple of years, Anthony Nelson, and of course the fantastic rookie Tristan Wirfs. So interesting stuff going on, and I'm going to let you highlight next week. We've got plenty of time to lead up to the Super Bowl. We don't want to burn everybody out. As we record this on Tuesday afternoon, we've still got 12 more days to Super Bowl Sunday or Super Sunday. So we'll talk a little bit more about your connection to Anthony Hitchens as you did last week with some of the players who were in the championship games. But I wanted to pick up a conversation with you from a couple of weeks ago, James, that you and I have talked about. And you were talking about players, former Hawkeyes, getting ready for the NFL and the combine and going into the draft. Now I'd like you to talk a little bit about your experience in the past. Coach Ferentz has brought you in to talk to incoming freshmen or incoming players to the program, but also outgoing players about financial responsibility. And I'm going to kind of stop right there and let you fill in the blanks of what your role was there, when it was all happening, and just give us the inside info if you could, please.
Yeah, no, that's obviously a lot's changed in that world because of COVID. But previously, yeah, I was doing a kind of a basics of financial management type class for both the young guys and then the older guys. And really, it was just part of Coach Ferentz is huge on, I mean, guys being ready for post-football life. And it is funny when you think of financial decisions or money management. It's just like you don't really get any education. Even as a guy who took finance classes, you don't learn kind of the boots on the ground, real life stuff you need to do. So understanding a mortgage and interest and Roth IRAs and just basic stuff that if you have the knowledge at a younger age, you can really leverage it for the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life. It's just it goes with everything else Coach Ferentz does. He's trying to prepare people to be better men. Financial management is one part of being a prepared person for society. And so that's how I kind of got tied in. In general, I really like talking to young people about investments because when you think of investments and the opportunity young people have, I mean, leveraging time over 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it's of the utmost importance. So I've really enjoyed getting to do that. Obviously, like I said, with COVID, that's kind of thrown the world on top of its head on who can be in the facility and who can't be, and that's completely understandable.
What were some of your highlights for, let's say, for example, an incoming freshman? You mentioned leveraging time over money or with money. What would be your top couple of tips or advice that you would give incoming freshmen or incoming transfers into the Iowa program? And then how is that different? I'm sure, obviously, the differences from a guy leaving the program. Give us a couple of highlights from each side of that, if you would, please.
Yeah, so it's a great point. So the incoming guys, right? I mean, truth is, no matter how optimistic we want to be, not all of them are going to make it through their senior year. So you've got a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different opinions. And we start really at the basics of checking account, getting your scholarship check to land there, parking tickets. Like, you don't know how many guys ruin their time at Iowa because they rack up thousands of dollars of parking tickets.
Jordan Bohannon right now, the Twitter war between him and parking.
We're talking very base level stuff of just money coming in, money going out, and what should be expected and what your goal should be on how you're paying for rent, where you're parking your car, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, with the outgoing guys, you've got some that are going to go on to professional football careers, but a lot of them are not. And they're going to go to a sales job or a marketing job or whatever. And you do start talking about, I mean, just when do you buy a house? When do you rent? Debt, like the different kinds of debt and what kind of debt to avoid and what's going to be a little bit more normal as you start a family and planning around getting married and kids and just a lot of that basic stuff that every 24 to 30-year-old is going to deal with. And just the sooner you learn that stuff, the sooner you can kind of get a plan to make sure you're going in the right direction. So I don't know if there's something that just sticks out as, wow, this one guy asked this, but in general, just with those freshmen, it's very basic. And then quite frankly, you go through 4 years of the Iowa program and you've already got guys that are pretty dang sharp on a lot of things. Right. So I'm just trying to enhance their ability to kind of start with a plan and hit the ground running as soon as their time's done at Iowa.
Yeah, some of those younger guys, as you mentioned, it's a deluge of information, and it's trying to sort that all out. And then once you're leaving, you're hit with a lot of things as well, as you mentioned in your departure of, are you going to go to the NFL? Are you going to a combine? Are you going to train in California or Florida or stay at Iowa where everything's set up? So there are so many things that's got to be for these guys. It can be a bit overwhelming. So it is nice that guys like yourself and Coach Ferentz makes that available to his players to try to help sort some things out. As you said, I'm sure there's not only one path that you can set these guys on, but when you mentioned the parking tickets, and there's a big social media battle going on between Jordan Bohannon and University Parking, so that's been all over social media, is why I jumped in and said that to you. But and all the former players who are jumping into that social media back and forth between Jordan and the University Parking system, it is kind of interesting, as you mentioned, that is much more of a hot button issue than somebody would think, because my goodness, James, that can rack up into the high dollars. You get 1, 2, or 3 of those.
Thousands of dollars of parking tickets. And it's inexcusable, quite frankly. And it also, I'm not going to say it's complete. I remember my freshman year, there was a lot more flexibility on parking than there was by my senior year. And I'm just assuming that's continued to be the case. So Broderick Binns was the head of player development. I think he got upgraded here recently, but he played with me, and he's such a great guy, but he has such a good sense of what those guys are going through. So they build out a plan for these guys, both finding jobs, finance management, living situations. They try to do a really good job of helping these guys as much as they can outside of football. And he's kind of headed that up the last couple of years.
That is fantastic stuff, and greatly appreciate you taking us inside to what some of these players are going through before, during, and after their Hawkeye careers, or leading into it and then leading from it. We'll talk next week about the Super Bowl. We'll get more in depth about your experiences, as you mentioned in the past, with Anthony Hitchens, but then also Ben Neiman with the Chiefs going into the Super Bowl, and then, of course, Anthony Nelson and Tristan Wirfs with the Buccaneers. So, James, as always, thank you so much for joining us here at Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. We'll look forward to catching up with you next week, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
As always, you're welcome, and thank you. For James Vandenberg, Jeff Horner not joining us this week, Adam Haluska sitting in for Jeff Horner. So the next segment, we'll have another Hawkeye basketball playing great. Back with more in just a few moments.
There is a spot for women in agriculture. There's many places for females, for female farmers. We can do a lot. Over the years, maybe we couldn't have always done everything, but there's lots of places we're finding on our dairy farm especially that females are really good at milking cows. They're really good caretakers. They're good at taking care of animals and observant and detail-oriented, which fits in well on a farm and can make an operation more successful.
Welcome back to Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara, and as you see on the screen, there they are. The fearsome twosome. Jeff Horner not there, the fearsome threesome. So Jeff wasn't able to make it this week. Jeff Horner, former Hawkeye great. But I've got 2 other former Hawkeye greats, his teammates back in that heyday of the Hawkeyes in the early to mid 2000s, from 04 to 07 for Adam. But for Greg and Jeff, it was 02 to 06. But first and foremost, Adam Haluska to my left, screen left, and then Greg Brunner at the bottom of the screen. Greg, Iowa's all-time leading rebounder. Adam, a second-round NBA draft pick. Hawkeyes through and through. So first and foremost, guys, thanks for joining me. And secondly, we'll start with you, Adam. Thanks for joining me. How's everything going with you?
Going good. Yeah, tough loss we had against Indiana, but looking forward to more of the season here. So,
yes, definitely. And Greg, how about you?
Going well. Little kids basketball, school, all that fun stuff. So did a full week of toughness at little kids basketball. Got to get it right.
Get your head right. That is exactly right. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to today, and I can't wait. So as Adam had prefaced, I'm going to get both your takes on this. And this time I'll start with you, Greg, and then you after that, Adam. Greg, your thoughts on the tough loss at home to Indiana. We knew it was going to be a tough game. We previewed it last week. You knew Archie Miller was going to have some. Galloway didn't play for Indiana, one of their better players. They still ended up sticking it to the Hawks, 81-69. A 20-3 run in the second half left us all just shaking our heads. And Indiana comes into that game 8-6, and the Hawkeyes were tied for first in the Big Ten for that game. Now that looms large. We record this on Tuesday afternoon. Friday night's game, the fans will have watched this game already by the time this show airs. But Greg, talk about what happened against Indiana and what you foresee coming with Illinois, please.
Yeah, honestly, those ones happen. You got to let those ones go. You don't want to have a week off after a game like that. Those are ones that you want to play two games later, because the coaches are going to be fuming. You're going to work on a lot of things that aren't your normal that you did wrong. And it was just losing CJ in the second half hurt him. And he's just an offensive flow machine. So he kind of gets the ball distributed. He can shoot the ball. And we just lacked scoring in that second half, couldn't hit shots. And that's part of it. And I thought that their zone disrupted us. And then they picked apart our zone where they settled before they got in. They got guys to collapse, and then they got easy kickouts for another driving opportunity or catch and shoot threes, which are layups these days.
Yeah.
So that's what it really came down to in that game. I really wish I would have known. It was one of those interesting ones where I thought the Hawkeyes were going to roll in the second half, and didn't happen. But Illinois will be a tough one. Probably one of the more athletic Big Ten teams, and going to get up and down. And I think they play a similar style to us. Is can we match that athleticism, and can we match the energy? Really, I mean, I watched Illinois a couple times, and that game against Northwestern, that was a tale of what they can be. They can be ice cold, or they can be just on a steamroll, and it's a very dangerous team.
Yeah. And Adam, I'll go to you, please.
No, same thing. I thought the zone just looked a little weak, especially in that second half. They had a little screen action up top. I mean, how many times did we get the ball, down in the paint there where we let them have a shot or they got fouled? It was frustrating. And I know, obviously our offense really got stagnant. I'd like to see us set better screens. If you watch a lot of times, sometimes in those games, guys are just going to spots. We weren't getting great looks, and we weren't hitting the shots we were taking. So, the other thing, like Greg said, you got to let it go. It sucks having a week in between. But there's a lot we can look back on that film and actually, I think, learn from. As close as we might have thought it was, it could have been a lot worse. The Indiana didn't shoot the free throws entirely well, and they left a lot of points out there. So it's not who we are. I mean, we're a much better team. I didn't think I'd ever see this team go on a, down a 20-3 run. We got enough scoring on the floor, but he's right. Having CJ out, hopefully he's healthy, at least getting better. But we're going to need him for big stretches of this Big Ten season. So a lot can happen, right? We can go on a nice little run here and get back to first place. But I'm anxious for this Illinois game. Like he said, they're athletic. You don't know what team they're going to bring, and whatever team they do bring, if they're ready to go, it's going to be a tough matchup.
Well, and viewers, I got to tell you, well stated by both of you. And you see their social media and that they're in the financial business. Both Greg and Adam are, so you see all their information at the bottom of the screen. But what I want to let the viewers know, Adam, you and I were talking off air before Greg joined us here on the Zoomcast to record and do this TV show. And you brought up the Illinois game. I said, do you have any memories of an Illinois game from your past? And you brought it up, and then when Greg got on the screen with us, the huge grin he had on his face. So, Greg, I'm going to let you react. Adam, tell the story that you did for me off the air for the viewers now, if you would, from an Illinois game in your and Greg's past, please.
Yeah. So I think they were either 1 or 2 undefeated coming in to our building in Carver, and we had a pretty solid season going on. It was a big matchup. I think we were both ranked, and they come into our building. We come out for warm-ups, and right before the start of the game, an entire section was Orange Crush. They ended up, I think they had Hawkeye shirts on or somewhat neutral clothing. And so, we played in Champaign against the Orange Crush, earlier that year. Just an incredible crowd. I mean, they had huge support being ranked, like I said, either 1 or 2 in the country. And I think we were pretty shocked along with the rest of Carver when all these shirts came off. And whoever did the ticket sales gave a whole bunch of tickets to an Illinois crowd right in the same section. So we were pretty amazed by that.
Yeah, it was something. It was the most creative thing I've ever seen come out of Illinois. No, it was. I remember we were looking up. We're like, wow, this isn't normal. Like an hour and a half before the game, screaming, yelling, everything, and then right when we're about to jump ball, it's just boom, orange. I'm like, oh, that's an ugly orange too. I don't like seeing that in Carver. So,
and going and back to Greg. I mean, we've had family, right? Our girlfriends played or traveled to some of the games. We had friends or family. A select few of parents got to sit behind the bench. There's a ton of them that have to sit. If you go to an opposing crowd and you try to buy tickets or get tickets that are issued, you're sitting at the very top. And so these guys had decent seating, but they were all together and they were all one big crowd. So it made it pretty memorable.
Well, I got to ask you both in about a minute each here. I love it. We got Adam Haluska, former Hawkeye basketball, playing great to my left, screen left. So it would be your right, viewers. And then Greg Brunner at the bottom of the screen joining us. I got to say this to both of you. Jordan Bohannon, much has been made on Twitter, social media about Jordan's battle with University of Iowa parking. And I hate to do this to both of you, but I got about a minute left each way. So Adam, give me your take on this, and then we'll close it out with your take on it. Greg, please go first, Adam.
Yeah, so I came from Iowa State. We didn't have to pay to park to practice or even be there at the arena. So I was shocked when I came over, and guys like Greg and Jeff tried to kind of show me the ropes. I used to park out by the track or down by the Wigan Pen, and I would walk, sometimes even for game days or definitely for practice. Greg can allude to this. I mean, you could have been at Carver 4 to 5, 6, 7 hours a day, and we just didn't have a lot of walking around money. And so to pay to actually have to be there to practice every day, and if things go wrong, or you got an extra film session or weightlifting or whatever, there's a lot of times guys did not have the cash in their pockets to leave the parking ramp. So
it was change at the time. It wasn't cash, it was change too.
There were no credit card machines.
Yeah,
it's I'll let Greg kind of finish, but it is crazy. And to be a student athlete and as much time that we put in and have to be there, Jordan's got a battle. I don't agree that he should be fighting it right now during the season, but he's got a point.
Yeah, I would. I haven't seen a racket this well done since the Mafia in New York in the mid 50s. It's unreal. Like the athletes need to be taken care of on this one. Every school that I know of, they don't have this type of problem, or a lot of the schools. I shouldn't say every. It's a situation where you're as an athlete, you're variable. You have no idea what the coaches have for an agenda, plan, of practice, everything. Like you show up. Alfred wanted us there an hour before practice to get treatment. So we get there at 10 o'clock in the morning. There's days we didn't leave until 5 or 6, and then you're going directly to class. There's days that you got out at 2 or 3. There's days that you got out at 1. So like paying that machine over and over and over where it's a variable, it's impossible to do.
Well, and like you said too, it only goes to 4 hours, right? On some of those. So you could be in there 6 hours and you're not going to be able to leave practice and go tell coach, hey, I got to go feed the meter so I don't get a ticket.
Yeah.
That would go over well.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And I got to tell you both. I just talked to James Vandenberg, the segment before you, former Hawkeye quarterback, and it happened in football. And he was giving financial planning symposiums to incoming players and outgoing players. And he said, Dave, players had thousands of dollars of parking fines and racked up. As you guys said, you can't pay attention to that. And as you both had mentioned, that's a battle for down the road, that's for certain. And it's just intriguing to me, as you both mentioned, that Jordan's going through this during the season with other things to think about. But I can't thank you both enough for joining me this week, sitting in for Jeff Horner and knocking it out, or slam dunking it. I was going to use a baseball analogy. Better to use a basketball analogy with you two, but slam dunking it. Adam Haluska, Greg Brunner, 2 former Hawkeye greats. Guys, thank you so much. Greg is the all-time leading rebounder at Iowa still, and Adam was a second-round NBA draft pick in 07 NBA draft. So thank you guys both so very much, and I look forward to catching up with you very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks indeed. Thanks, guys. Also to James Vandenberg. I want to let you viewers know you're still making us #1 in late night, so thank you for that. Thanks also to James Vandenberg, David Eicholt, and Joe Mershman. And to you, the viewers, most importantly, please stay tuned for just a second after the show when the credits roll, and please support my advertisers and sponsors the way they support this show. For Hawkeye, I'm Dave O'Hara. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you.